of debate, they inculcate a culture of fear. So if you're coming with an alternative perspective, probably an alternative perspective that will address the plight of these men and women who are taken advantage of, they create an environment where no one will listen to you and you'll be afraid of articulating your issues. And then number two, instead of persuasion, they've entrenched a culture of intimidation. You're intimidated. In 1992, after the 1992 general election, there were a number of by-elections, if you remember. Some of us were pretty young, but I remember in Migori constituency, in Nyatike constituency, in Dhiwa constituency, and there's a constituency in the coastal region. There were by-elections in areas where Ford Kenya had won. And I think it was influenced by the fact that Moi was afraid of Jaramogi Oginga Odinga having more MPs in parliament and being the official leader of opposition. Remember, Jaramogi was not even number 2. Jaramogi was number 4. But he had more MPs. And I think the intention was to cripple him, have less Ford Kenya MP and have Ford Kenya just as a parliamentary political party, but not the official opposition party. And I remember walking to Migori Stadium and listening to a number of candidates who came forward for the by-election, because the Ford Kenya candidate who had won was now contesting on a Kanu ticket. So Ford Kenya had to get candidates. And there were a couple of candidates. I remember one called Charles Ogut, who was by then a university student. We went and listened. But you see, the political class today understands that if Hezbon Owila pops up and he has ideas and people listen to him, the likelihood of fresh ideas challenging the status quo is extremely high and addressing the plight of these men and women. So they've created a culture that sustains, their privileged position as a political class at the expense of the vulnerable masses. So for me, if you ask me today, they are no goons. They are no goons. They are Kenyans who are looking for leadership. They are Kenyans who are looking for opportunities. They are Kenyans who wake up and they want to fend for their families. But then they are political leaders who've become goons, who've created a system, they're sustaining it because it benefits them. They go out and take advantage of those Kenyans. And it is very unfortunate that the government of the day has failed to crack on this, because the buck, stops with the president and the people the president has put in place to just stop this once and for all. Today, they'll block the member of parliament who is trying to challenge my MP, for instance, in Embakasi South. They'll block him with motorbikes. Tomorrow after the election, this politician probably go for recess after winning or whatever, dealing with his stress. They'll block me or they'll block you. And no one will do nothing because they won't have the politicians to pay them. But they'll still look for a way of, meeting their daily expenses. They'll end up creating a very chaotic system that thrives on impunity as they're looking for money.
It seems as though one of the things that we forgot through all of this is what the voice of the people was actually saying. And that maybe the sub-question to this is, these things now that were being brought to Ol Kalou, Bosco, do you think that they will continue? The electricity poles that were dropped...
research boats.
Yeah, the boats remain. The mattresses, which we already heard that there were some members of the community who actually took these mattresses to JM Karaoke Hospital. That they were wondering, okay, so what happens when this gas cylinder is empty? Who's going to refill it? Do you think that those things that were done now will continue? Or finish even?
Yeah. For me, I think it will depend. First of all, politics is war. And in war, you go with the best arsenal that you have. And if opposition, the best arsenal they have was chanting and this language and the other one, and someone else who is pro-government had some resources at his disposal as part of a tool to use in war to bring development to the people, I don't think the people of Ol Kalou have a problem with the development they were given, first of all. Why? Because if you are, there's a one time in Berry North, I met an old lady who lived in a madhouse, and then this electricity that was brought, and the kids could use electricity in the house. So one day she asked me, So you, Bosco, you are telling me not to vote for the government. These people I have never seen electricity in my entire life. My children have never seen it. So why are you telling me to trust someone who is saying they want opposition? And also, mind you, the opposition want the position to bring development to the people. So why do you want me to trust that person who is saying, I'm talking about Mbeere North, and this other one is bringing. Now, on the issue of now how that one is persuading the voter at the end of the day, the development aspect of it, it's helpful to the candidates of the government to campaign. It may be wrong for the extra development that came, and the question you're asking whether it will continue. It may continue depending on how the current member of parliament who was elected will behave in this. Naturally, people keep saying you don't need to be in government to enjoy the development of your area.
You shouldn't
need
to be.
Relax.
I'm
you
saying.
guys relax. Can I put my case across?
Yes.
You don't according to our constitution, theoretically, you don't require. There's a process to getting development to Mwananchi, which involves the process of budget estimates brought to the National Assembly or County Assembly, approved by MCAs, implementation is done. That's the right way it's supposed to be done. But over the years, and even now, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying how it has been happening on the ground. So it happens that even in a home, if you are a father, the kid who is very obedient, when you're sharing sweets, you give him first. And then you bring the other one here and scold him and ask him, I sent you yesterday, you didn't go. So what happens normally in government circles? If you are opposition member of parliament, for you even to call a PS or a CS to pick your phone call, to forward on a certain project, it becomes problematic to you. The other thing is, I would not be surprised if Ngodo, after swearing in after a month, he goes and supports the government agenda because he wants to be elected in 2027. So the only thing for him to do, he might follow what all the other leaders have been doing. I'm not saying it is right. I'm just saying that is what has been happening.
Okay, so...
But one thing which was very unique to do in that election is the Gen Z voter. I looked at those crowds. Gen Zs did not come out to vote. And that's a concern.
Okay, it's one of the concerns that we'll bring up as we continue this conversation, then also come back and say again, going back to what actually the voice of the people is here. Yeah. Because we see that voice also reverberating in other parts of the country who are now saying, well, if you want us to listen to you, then perhaps you must do something for us. But was the intent to develop or was the intent to get a vote? Those are two totally different things. Husband Wheeler as well as Bosco Curio are with us this morning. We'll come back and we'll talk more when we come back from this break. Stay with us.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Dr.
Wheeler, that we know you and we know exactly what it is that you're doing. If you're coming to spend this money, that means you do have it, but you choose not to spend it on things that then affect us and our development. So you may come to hoodwink us with these goodies, but we are still going to make a decision with logic. Is that something that's spreading around the country?
I think it is. It is, and it's a good thing. Because whether the intent is to develop or not, development happens. So people would essentially come to this realization that there's a lot that the government can do because there is money lying somewhere, and people will be a lot more demanding of what the government should do. Essentially, we know that it's the main intention there is to get people to vote for the government of the day or to get people to vote for the government preferred candidate simply because now we've brought development. You've been crying for roads, there are roads. You've been crying for electricity, there's electricity. You've been living in deplorable conditions. Here are mattresses. Here now you can cook using LPG gas, and so on and so forth. So you look at that and you're thinking, if the intention of the government is to develop, then that development plan is misplaced. That they're only coming to develop when they're looking for the vote. And there are a number of Kenyans who will be looking at that and they'll be very critical. They'll be saying that the only time that we need to get what we can out of the establishment is during an election. And once we get that, we can vote whichever way we want to vote. And if I may just respond to what he said, that even the MP-elect might decide that the best thing to do now is to work with the government of the day for the development in Ol Kalou. I mean, that's a choice that if he makes, I think politically, it will only push him until the next general election.
Yeah.
You know, because of what we've seen. People will celebrate the goodies that come from the establishment, but still vote on the basis of who they think will serve their interest. The other thing that came out clearly is the fact that, in Kenya, there are two categories of Kenyans. And this government has become, or let me say the broad-based has become very strategic in the way they are targeting them. There's a category that is very big on infrastructural development. The government owes this to us. They need to create an enabling environment. And I think there's a track that the government has taken that is taking care of that. So if you look at the road network that is going to the western region, they're actually targeting the people who are asking themselves, these taxes that we are paying, where are they going? But they've also realized that there's a very big chunk of the Kenyan population that hates a poor politician, that hates a campaign period that gives them promises of what will be done and does not give them immediate gratification. And I think that is the population that the people of Ol Kalou say it exists. They will take the immediate gratification, but they will still vote the way they want to vote. They don't have to vote for the government. It tells you that all these travels that we see in the name of empowerment, led by the deputy president and many MPs, and they contribute millions of shillings. Where they get that money, I don't know. But they are going round because there's a sizable population of Kenyans who believe it is our time to eat. A politician comes for a rally, we need to be left with something. Where I come from, you need to go yours, So the extent to which the government was thinking, or let me say politicians were thinking, that the more you give goodies, the higher the likelihood of you being voted, is increasingly getting debunked in Ol Kalou. So whereas in Ol Kalou they were given grand things. In Malava, they were given bread and mkate and soda. I think the premium in Malava or areas like Malava will increase, but the reality is they won't have to vote the way the people who are giving them more want them to vote, which for me is a realization that is coming at the right time.
Yeah. But do we need to have the conversation about where this money comes from?
We need to. I mean, there's a lot of conversations around where this money comes from, and not just the money that they're dishing.
Or that rather what it could actually be doing.
Yes. Yeah. Basically means that there's a sense in which there's a lot of money, but there's a dearth of a strategic plan to make good use of this money. And I think people have raised a lot of questions that to what extent are these disruptive and landmark projects by this regime working for us? Like, we see things have been done, but we never question to what extent have we had an outlay of capital that is beyond what is required for the things that have been done. Whether it is SHA or all these, small and big infrastructure that they've developed, you ask yourself, I mean, this is good, but the initial outlay was just out of this world. Why do we have to spend a lot of billions in a system that fails every other time? And therefore, you have a clique of politicians who go say, SHA is working. The other day, there was even a very interesting one who was telling his people, we need to vote for President William Ruto because when my son did not have school fees, I went to the president and he gave me money. And you ask yourself, what are we talking about? Can all of us go to our MPs, the president, and ask for money for school fees? And is that the basis upon which we need to evaluate the political class? Yeah. So the questions around funds, where these funds are coming from and how they are used, whether it is judiciously used in the interest of the people, are going to be very critical questions. The only worry is, we make a lot of noise, but no one has. You expect the opposition to put all these things together and have a watertight campaign platform and say, this is what the government is doing that is in the interest of Kenyans.
But even while at that then, Dr. as you respond, Bosco, what makes us think that the opposition understands it like that, or is it just the same cabal of individuals just in different camps, Because as you say, the opposition should take all these and have a case that they can give to Kenyans. But where Kenyans sit, they're looking at the opposition and saying, these are just the same guys, just in different camps simply because they are not in government. But if all these guys were on the same side, they would just perpetuate the very same things. But that notwithstanding, you look at the budgets that went into Ol Kalou, like you've said, development has to be budgeted for. I remember there's a lady in Ol Kalou who told KTN, hii barabara ilikuja ikakwamia hapa. Whatever remained, wamekuja wamefanya in the last 3 weeks, you know. And she was asking the question, must development stop? That at that point when someone needs votes, it's when they remember there's a road in Ol Kalou that we never finished, that now we can finish this road for us to see the government is working, for us to give them votes. And that right there should be classified as voter bribery in one way or the other. Because that lady needed that road 4 years ago for her to be able to transport her goods to the market back and forth. You talk about the lady who got power. Fine. If this lady got power 4 years ago, perhaps her decision when it comes to voting the next person would not be based off, I will vote this person because they've given me power, but it's because I have power, but I need to vote someone who resonates with me. Have Kenyans met the connection that a lot that is happening is just wrong and that they need to bring themselves on the table to set the agenda, that agenda is not set by others for them?
Thank you. You know, first of all, Dennis, I'm vying for a position of Member of Parliament in Manyata. And do you know why? Because I've realized the current voter is very enlightened. Right now, if you go to any village, even a granny will tell you there's a finance bill. They know it. And they know they've been holding their leaders accountable on different issues, and it has been happening. However, to answer to something you mentioned about Ol Kalou and what is happening and the trend, I disagree with that totally, because I've told you there were 10 by-elections. This is the only one that has worked towards that direction. Look at Ol Kalou historically. 1995, the same thing happened. Government went there with machinery. They voted for an opposition candidate. In the last election, they elected a Jubilee candidate against the wave of UDA in that area. However, look at Mbeere North, for example. If the argument is development is not working for the by-elections and Malava, as he said, and all that, those, if it worked there, it may work even in future. The point is, that issue of now the people voting otherwise because of they are punishing, maybe they don't want the development and all that, I am disagreeing with that, because the problem with our society is that, as he said, we are poor. And as long as we are poor, the politicians will always take advantage of the situations. When I say that, I see our country having a lot of inequalities. The margin between the rich and the poor is very big. And that's one of the reasons politicians, be it in the opposition or pro-government, will always use what they have at hand, whether it's dirty money, whether it's whichever method they are using to get that vote. And I have a concern with our constitution. Since the implementation of our constitution, we have always had budget deficits. Do you know why? Because our constitution was extremely expensive. Look at the counties, for example. If I give you 3 scenarios of 3 counties, county of Embu, county of Tharaka Nithi, county of Meru. That's why you're having the conversation of Mount Kenya East and West about resources. Because in the last regime of Jubilee, for example, of Uhuru, all the resources zilikuwa zinafika pale makutano, zinapika break. So the people are not excited with all the other regimes have like marginalized the Mount Kenya East. And that's why you hear the conversation, trailer imechoka kuvuta mzigo, wacha ikatwe. Because now they see the deception that has been there. You guys, we have been supporting you to get this position. But once you get it, you forget about us. And now you say you want us to help you to put to the basket to get the vote. But Judy, even having said that, when you look at development and how it's affecting our voting patterns, and I said about the counties, these counties, when you look at, do we need 10 CECs, 15 chief officers, directors in each and every county, and look at the revenues that these counties are producing? That I'm showing you where the deficit has been coming all these years. We are having counties that is producing, for example, Embu County is producing around collecting revenue of 700 million. What are they getting from the government? A whole 7 billion. Another county, even those local counties in the Mashinani are supported by counties like Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret, these big counties that collect a lot of revenue. So that inequality, sometimes I think we need a conversation at some point and ask ourselves, are these a number of spending we are having with the staff, chief officers, governors, do we need 40 MCAs in one county? Do we need 30 MCAs in one county assembly that are just getting seating allowances and all that, becoming expensive? We are talking about a budget of now a deficit of 1.1 trillion. So for how long will this go on?
The reason why you have a 1.1 trillion budget deficit is that because 80% of your revenue is going towards paying debt, which in Kenya, you have two instances under which you can borrow, according to the same constitution. One, for development, and two, in the case of a budget shortfall, but within the short term of no longer than 90 days. It's clear. But if you have a debt of 13 trillion shillings, what that means is that it stifles everything else out. This money that has been borrowed, and stop me if I'm wrong, Dr. Wheeler, is supposed to have gone towards the very development that people are crying about today that cannot happen because there is not enough money.
Correct.
But you are paying debt for that development. So there is crime upon crime upon crime upon crime
Over the years.
that Kenya is still having to, Kenyans are still having to pay for. So had that original idea been actually seen to fruition, Kenya would not be having the issue that it's having today. But if for every 100 shillings you're paying 79 to debt, tell me in which fantasy world you will be able to take that 21 shillings on the 100 and do everything that you have to do, that you have mentioned. Pay all of these people who sit in the county assembly, pay all of these people, and then still develop. Sounds like
do that is happening in each and every county.
You know,
every county, all the county.
I mean, you know, politics is very expedient, and I'm sure most of the people who are talking about the cost of running county governments and the national government are the same people who've been against any constructive remodification of the constitution. Because at some point there were those conversations that counties are not sustainable. They need some sort of a regional cluster, simply because why would you have a CEC for sports in Homa Bay and another CEC for sports in Migori and another one in Kisii and Nyamira, and they're neighboring? And if anything, the sports that they play cuts across those counties. So I think those are very serious conversations around governance, but they're masking the real issue that we need to probably focus on. It is very simple. If we keep borrowing, like today, if you take it at a personal or family household level, if today my income and my wife's income can get us a loan of 10 million, and we take that loan of 10 million, in which case our salaries will be servicing that loan, and we squander that 10 million, it basically means we've not created an environment that will enable us pay that loan. So we are not getting revenues to pay that loan. And our salary is already depleted. We will continue living in a deplorable condition. And I think the critical question that we need to ask these many leaders that we give powers, from MCAs, women rep, senators, is a question of why do you allow Kenyans, to live in a country where borrowing makes our condition a lot more deplorable, because we are borrowing with the intention. The Constitution is very clear that borrowing is only meant for investment in development, in which case it's supposed to create an environment that can make the country more. But in a situation where we have odious debts, you don't even know where these debts went to, what they finance, and we are paying. I think the circle is vicious. And instead of blaming the leadership that we have, because we're not going to take these counties away, that's for a fact. No. It is impossible to go to Migori County and say, now you're going to reduce the number of MCAs. We'll be like, we only have 4 wards in Suna East. And the guys in Suna East will say, no way, we are not going to seat even one, you see. But we have a reason to ask our ward representatives, hey, wait, you're an MCA. members of counties. You're an MCA. Now we need to see value for money. Whatever money is coming down to the ward level, how is it spent? You are a member of parliament. There are two things which are even contradictory. First of all, you're a member of parliament. You're supposed to oversight the national government. And then you're also given resources to spend, in contravention of the constitution. Even the NGCDF Act in itself does not envision a situation where an MP is involved in this, but they are involved. So it is for Kenyans to start asking, now if money is spent on this, it needs to be judicious enough, and we need to see a return on investment on
do
that.
you think that the leaders that we have today, MCAs, members of parliament, understand their role? Because perhaps maybe we're sitting here and assuming that these are individuals who understand their roles based off what the constitution says. Because you find, and what angers me is because I remember at some point even my member of parliament in Yamita went to the president saying, Mimi, I'm working with the government so that I can get development. Yet he sits in the National Assembly where budgeting happens, where he can push even for private members' bill for development to come to his constituency, because development is not a favor. It is a right for every other Kenyan. Do people who are in these offices understand their role?
Let me tell you, the ones who understand use that understanding for their own benefit and the benefit of the people that they're supposed to make work for Kenyans. It's simply what your MP said, that they understand their role, but then they've decided to use the power of their role to act on the whims of the president or the executive. Now, at the national level, it is not bad. At the county assembly and the county level, it is worse, because either MCAs don't understand their roles, or if they do understand their roles, now they're using that against the governor. So there's no development. But to a large extent, what they don't understand, even at the county assembly, a committee at the county assembly, once constituted, has the powers equivalent to a high court. In which case, they can censor any CEC. They can even censor the governor. Now, that power has never been exercised. You come from Migori. There was a time we had a governor who had the whole world on his neck. Cases upon cases, so many things. Not even one MCA raised an issue at the county assembly. Not even one. Now ask yourself, is it that they didn't know nothing was happening? Today as we speak, governors, and this is from members of parliament that we interact with, they tell you the shocking details of what governors are doing. That instead of paying salaries, they hold that money to earn interest. And you ask yourself, is it that MCAs don't know? MCAs know, but they're just like, okay, if you can do that, then we need to get our cut out of it. And it's the unfortunate thing that at the county level, let me tell you, when I was growing up, health centers were working better than they are working now, but there was no devolution. Health centers were, as in, I would leave my high school and go to the local health center and get treated and go back to school. Now today, health is devolved. That money goes to the county. It is closer to the people. In the run-up to the 2022 general election, folks in Suna East were telling me, boss, us, we don't need anything. We don't even need roads. But we just need access to medical and health services close to us. That is all we need. Guys who are from very far off. Now, that was 2022. 2022 was how many years after devolution? So many years. So either these people understand, the people who are supposed to oversight both the county and the national government, either they understand and they're using that to their advantage, or they don't understand. And if they don't understand, I think the problem is whoever gives them that power.
Is there time for a systemic change? Because all of the things that we're talking about now seem to have been practiced and entrenched over time. That it's almost assumed that certain things will happen. But that we take ourselves away from the reality that Kenya probably has enough money to pay its debt. That Kenya probably has enough money to do this development that we talk about if it was not being stolen. Because we go back to that question and we say, how is it possible that somebody can say, how can you spend 10 billion and 1 billion? And somebody comes and answers you and says, it can even be 10 billion. In the light and in the face of all of these things that are going on, is it time for a system? It's the system that needs to actually be uprooted, overhauled, and tossed into the rubbish bin, and then you reinstitute it.
I agree totally. Ndu and Dennis and my Daktari here, my friend Daktari. one thing I will talk about. By the way, I'm very passionate about devolution. I was the assistant to Governor Wambora in 2013 as an advisor when we started, and I was actually behind the strategy of the 9 lives. I'm very passionate about devolution. I've even written a book I'll bring you about power to the people. The reason I'm saying about all this devolution and the issues that Dewey is talking about is our constitution is very clear on the roles of members of parliament and members of county assembly. It is to do representation, legislation, and oversight. Those 3 things, that's what I have a problem with. Why? Our current architecture of how the members of parliament should implement budgets. Listen to this. It is the work of the member of county assembly or MP to approve the budget. So there are budget estimates brought by the executive, and then it's approved by the member of county assembly, and then this member of county assembly or member of parliament implements these projects. Because let's be sincere, through, for example, CDF, NGCDF, there are committees. Who elects these committees? It is a member of parliament, more or less, in another way. Not unless we want to lie to ourselves. They are not involved. So you have given me money, I have approved the money, then I go to implement, then you expect me to oversight it. Okay? So I think if you have to have a discussion on what to change in our constitution, I have a big problem with, even if now you hear I want to become a member of parliament, I want to become a member of parliament, you give me budget, I approve, I implement, then I oversight. That's why there are a lot of deficit you're talking about in our system, because all members of parliament do, they don't even involve contractors nowadays. So what they will do is they will get companies to which will be pre-qualified under NGCDF in their constituencies, but they are the same guys who are implementing those projects. For example, I'm the member of parliament. I know what they're doing. I'm a member of parliament. Then I call you to come with a company. I say we want to save cost. We don't want to go the procurement process of coming contractors and all that. I'll be the one painting that classroom. So the money will be coming back to me. And then I'll want that money so that I give back to this community. Do you know how the voters we are contributing to that menace ourselves? Because, as he said, the roles of the member of parliament are well known, the 3 of them. But now the society, because of inequalities and the problems people are having on the ground, kuna mazishi, kuna hospitali. So what do you do?
Which goes back to
exactly.
If you change the system and those things were working in the first
So
place,
let's start with this one.
We can't even start.
Conflict
now
of
because
interest.
our time.
The conflict of interest of the 3 roles. You see, that's where the problem is.
Exactly. This is the state of the nation. These are the issues that we speak of, and we can't stop speaking about them. But we want to thank you both gentlemen for joining us this morning, Dr. Hesband Owila, as well as Bosco Cura. Thank you for joining us this morning. It doesn't stop. We keep talking.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good morning. Asante.
News from around the world. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.